Good evening, pre-calculus. Welcome to your third day of notes. Today we're going to be talking about the topic of factoring polynomials. So the first part of factoring we're going to review, once again this is all review today, it should not be anything new, is the greatest common factor. So what we have to look here is between these two terms, what do they have in common? Well, you have to think about 24 and 54. What is the greatest number that they have in common? Well, I can do this in my head. I know 24 is divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 12. And then 54 and so on, and I find the most common one, the largest one, I'm sorry. But there is actually a way of doing it on the calculator. So I'm going to show you how to do that on the calculator. So what you would do is you would hit menu right here. Go down to number, go down to number, and then right here, greatest common divisor. So the greatest common divisor between 24 and 54. So that's what I'm going to type in right here, 24, comma, 54. So the greatest common divisor is 6. So that is what I'm going to pull out. So my greatest common is 6. And what about my y's here? I've got 4 y's in this one and 3 y's in this one. So together they have 3 y's in common. So what you're always going to choose the smallest exponent, okay? So 4 and 3, you're going to choose the smallest one, y to the third. So now we got to figure out what goes inside here. The easiest way to figure it out is, well, I need to be able to distribute this to get these two. So let's start with the first term. I need to be able to multiply this 6y to the third times this piece to get 24y to the fourth. Well, 6 times what gives me 24? 4. Y to the third times what gives me y to the fourth? Y to the first. Drop down your minus. Now we got 6y to the third times what gives me the second term? Well, 6 times 9 gives me 54. Y to the third times what gives me y to the third? We don't need to add anything, so this would be your answer right here. All right, moving on to this one. So between 51 and 17, you would use your calculator, you would type it in. So you go menu, down to number, over, go down to greatest common divisor, between 51 and 17, 51, comma, 17, hit enter. 17 is the greatest common divisor. So 17, and between a to the 8th and a to the 3rd, the smallest one we choose, so a to the 3rd. Between b to the 4th and b to the 5th, choose the smallest one, b to the 4th. Now we got to figure out what goes inside. 17 times what gives me 51? That's going to be 3. A to the 3rd times what gives me a to the 8th? That's going to be a to the 5th, right? Because remember when we multiply, we add our exponents. So 3 plus 5 is 8. All right? And then b to the 4th times what gives me b to the 4th? That means we don't need to add anything. Drop down that plus. 17 times what gives us 17? 1, we don't need to add anything. A to the 3rd times what gives me a to the 3rd? We don't need to add anything. And then b to the 4th times what gives me b to the 5th? Well, that's going to be b. B. So we have 17 times 3 is 51. A to the 3rd times a to the 5th is a to the 8th. And then b to the 4th times nothing is still b to the 4th, so that works. 17 a to the 3rd times b to the 4th times b does give you this. 17 a to the 3rd, b to the 4th times b is b to the 5th. So that is a review over greatest common factor.